Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of the Mind Sculptors podcast. I am your host, Callahan, and we have a fantastic show lined up for you all today. I'm actually really excited about this one. There are two people that are really loving this community that are joining me today. And so I'm going to introduce them here in a moment. But before we get into all that, just want to thank you for joining us this week. If you like this episode or any of the other episodes or the Callahan is Here videos that we do, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. If you want access to our Discord server, as well as early access to our podcasts, I'm trying to get ahead of things so that we can get early access for you guys. Make sure to head on over to Patreon at patreon.com/themindsculptors, and you can check out the link in that description there. So, on to our wonderful co-hosts and guests for today. Joining me out from the Miami area is, you would know him on Twitter as the Yeva guy, otherwise known as Inkmoth. Inkmoth, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm going to go on with my common trope and say that it's pronounced Yeva.
Yeva?
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me, my bad.
No, it's just a running joke now that if somebody mispronounces it, I'm just going to pop up out of nowhere and tell you how to pronounce it. I personally don't care, but it's more of a, like, if I can't pronounce the name of my own commander correctly, I feel like that's embarrassing.
Is this the equivalent of Spleenface correcting people from Hullen when they say Chulane? Effectively?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. I actually was mind blown by that pronunciation myself.
I was also.
Yeah, Hulane. So I was one of the I actually, more embarrassingly, I used to call Dimmer before I heard a bunch of people at a card shop saying it out loud, and I felt...
Oh, that's what Cobblepot calls it, as Dimmer, and it, like, every time we're in a video and he says that, it just is like nails on a chalkboard. I love you, Cobble, but also joining us today is, all the way out from the Las Vegas area, is our beautiful Desert Rose, our good friend Flower. Flower, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing great. I'm so excited to have you guys on. You two are people that I really enjoy interacting with in the community. And if you could tell by the title of today's video, we're going to be talking about a particular archetype that these two individuals really love, and that is Mono-Green. And Mono-Green is one of those things, you know, on our channel we have the show The Mono White Guys, right? And so we've talked a lot about white. We've discussed like a lot of those things. When it comes to Mono-Green, though, that's not something that we've discussed a lot here on this channel. So I thought this was a great opportunity to sit down and have this conversation. So when it comes to Mono-Green archetypes and what they usually kind of look like, I know people are probably very familiar with Selvala. People are very familiar with Yi-San. But overall, what would you say, and I'll guess I'll direct this at Flower first. What do Mono-Green archetypes usually look like when you see them?
So for me, Mono-Green is kind of, it's very dependent on its creature combos. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of Ashaya, Kyrian Ranger, a lot of infinite, land ETBs, infinite creature ETBs, and producing infinite mana is kind of its biggest thing. Up until then, it's value creatures. I feel like every creature it puts out is value that helps you advance your board state. As far as green goes, like a lot of what I've noticed is that a lot of the creatures it puts out doesn't necessarily stop other people from doing what they're doing. It just advances you, and that's not, I run a beta progress, that's not for every creature, but
as Inkmoth just casually lays down a Manglehorn onto the table.
The subtlety.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's interesting because when you talk about it, like, I think like Selvala is usually characterized as like Mono-Green Storm, right? Like what is it called? Bro Storm?
Correct, yes. I think the bro denotes the creatures, right? Because they're bros. They come in, they help out.
Roller Bros.
That makes sense. For fans of the channel and fans of who like watch us stream on Team Turn 3 on Sundays, you if you've watched us a lot, you would have seen what is it? Sick Robot have to walk me through how to win with Marwyn because I was like, oh, this looks like a cool deck. I'll proxy up. And I was playing it and I had absolutely no idea what was going on the entire time I was playing it. I was just like, so wait, what do I do now? How does this work? Like all the creature combos feel very like beyond me. So when we look at these things, like what are the most common sort of like creature combos that people will see? And I guess Inkmoth will ask you this. Like what are like the common creature combos that people are generally going to see from a mono green deck?
For those unfamiliar with the color, you can almost always tell when a deck is suboptimal when they lack a Shia and Kieran Ranger, because that's basically what they're all going for now. It's the cleanest line. It's the most mana efficient one, and yeah, mono green lists are just gonna always look to get a mana dork on the field without summoning sickness. That's what they're always aiming for. So a lot of people always constantly try to destroy a specific piece that's bothering them, but what they're not aware of is that the mana is the one that is creating the problems and are the ones that lead to a line out. And that is basically the case for Yisan, Marwyn, and Selvala. Yeva just wants to do that when they can.
Just that instant speed, right?
Correct.
So when I look at that corner of the color pie, what is it that you really like about mono green as a strategy? Like, what is it that brings you to, because like, for instance, like I really like playing blue-white based strategies, and I can tell you all the reasons why. It's because I love control. I love telling you can't play the game. I'm the worst person. But what is it, Flower, that when you sat down, your big thing is Azusa. Like, what is it about green and Azusa and these strategies that you really like?
I really love subverting expectations. And I mean, now I sit down at a table, people expect Azusa. But the thing is like when I'm playing against a new pod, people don't expect a land deck.
Right.
Like when I'm playing cEDH, people don't expect a strictly land deck, and it's not like a Tatiova. Like I've gotten so many hilarious responses when I pull out Azusa as my commander. And
why not Tatiova?
Yeah.
Why not Tatiova? And I'm like, because I'm a Timmy. I don't want to play blue. I just want to like. I love playing big creatures that affect the board, and I love playing things that are hard to interact with. And I have started to have people slot in answers to my lands, which people weren't doing before.
Yeah.
And then they don't play with me for a couple months. They slot them back out, and then I win again. So.
So Inkmoth, I know that we were talking a little bit before we went live that you play a lot of like blue strategies outside of Yeva, or how am I supposed to say it again? You corrected me.
Yeah, it's like it's more of a yet. You know how you say yet?
Yeva?
Yeah, so Yeva,
Okay. So anyway, what is it that you like about this particular corner of the color pie?
I'll be honest with you, like since I started playing Yeva, it doesn't play like green as it does green things, obviously, since it's stuck in that color pie. But the fact that you get to interact at points in time where people can't, just really changes the way you look at the entire game. Because there are pockets within the game where, like, Breach is trying to resolve and just trying to pop it and then forcing them to counter that, like the Force of Vigor, for example, just allows me to let me know that I could just go off now because they used their counter on top of it, and they think that the whole objective was to stop them, and effectively I did. but on top of them. But yeah, outside of Yev, I only play Blue Farm and anything that is just incredibly proactive, or unless it's like outside of the meta, like you mentioned, Arden. I thought that list is really fun. Being able to pop things with Skull Clamp has always been a dream of mine. From the moment I saw that.
It never feels bad, ever. Like, it is the best feeling in the world to just be like, okay, I'm going to hit your dork. And people are like, wait, what?
Wait. If you can attach Skull Clamp to their creature and then you draw the cards?
Yes. Because Arden
I control the Skull Clamp.
That is so good.
You can kill, like, Ragavans. You kill, like, DRCs. Like, you kill so many things. And people are just, like, I've had people where I get Arden and Skull Clamp down on turn 1. And then people just play out like Ragavan because they aren't really thinking about it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to move to combat and quick Skull Clamp through your Ragavan. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah, that always makes them do the little double take. Yeah, I love value lists. I like biding my time. I feel like there's this common trend when you're playing a proactive list where if you have a win in your hand, you feel compelled to have to like push for it. Mm-hmm. But I've also noticed that if you're the first guy to try to go for a win, if you're the first player to try to go for a win, you lose.
Anybody who played during the Flash meta could tell you that.
Yeah.
Which is astounding to me how many, like, not to go off topic, but like how many people in the community now, how fast cEDH has grown over the last 2 years because of how many like fairly prominent people in our community did not play during the Flash meta. And as somebody who's been playing since like 2016, I'm like, oh boy, y'all don't remember. Y'all weren't there.
That was when my win rate dipped the most, by the way. Though sure. It was very satisfying to cast Crop Rotation in response to Flash, and then Mikokoro would come out and kill them. Because I've been on that since 2018, I believe. And that's been killing Labman before it even resolves since forever. Hold on.
Yeah, I started playing cEDH in June of last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I hear things about the meta change, and I'm like, this is all I've known.
Flash was the most, like, I would say before Thoracle, it was problematic, but in my opinion, like before Thoracle came out, I didn't hate Flash strategies. I like, especially like some of the really good ones outside of like Sacred Hulk had to play like a fair amount of dead cards. So like I didn't feel terrible playing against those things. Like Shuffle Hulk, I think, is a really good example of like,
that was my favorite.
Oh, I loved Shuffle Hulk, but it was just like, it was one of the, like a really good example of this is a very slot intensive deck. Mm-hmm. And then Sushi Hulk came around, and then they're like, what are slots?
Yeah. Sushi Hulk was so game warping, though.
Yeah, Sushi Hulk was, man, I still have PTSD from that.
I loved it, though. I loved it. I lost to it so many times, but I loved it because it was so cool. 2 mana, you win whenever.
What?
Our meta, in our local meta, when that card came out, even the people who weren't playing like full cEDH decks, like all of the sudden, everybody was playing Flash Hulk in our local meta. And it was just like the most miserable like 3-month span of playing cEDH, because it was just this giant cat and mouse game of like sitting there with your Flash and being like, where's my window? Where's my window? Where's my window?
I will say though, how do you think the Flash Hulk like experience and meta would have changed if Opposition Agent was a card when it was around?
It still wasn't enough. 3 mana to deal with it.
I think that it's interesting, and I think Inkmoth, you bring up a good point. There is, I think, even Mind Sensor still existed.
Yep, and it didn't deal with it.
It didn't stop it. and like and this is kind of, as you can see here, my sign. And this is kind of my issue with like Thassa's Oracle, and we've talked about this before on the podcast. Man, I guess we're getting into the weeds, but it is a green podcast, so like the weeds are fine, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
But like the stuff that hates on Thoracle also hates on like Dockside and things like that, right? So it seems like it's really good, except for generally you also want to be playing things that have ETB abilities as well, like Gilded Drake, like what's it called, Ranger Captain. Like there's also these sorts of things in the decks that want to hate on Thassa's Oracle. So it's like the stuff that you're incentivized to play is also disincentivized by the stuff you want to play. So it makes it very difficult to like really deal with Thassa's Oracle, which is why I think it needs to be banned. But
yeah, in my deck, I think there are 2 ways. Yeah, there are 2 ways to deal with Oracle. Both of them are tutorable actually at instant speed, which is pretty doable. And that's just endurancing what they have in their graveyard back into their library in response to the trigger. And Mikokuro, as Inkmoth showed.
Endurance
I'm
is...
on Gaia Reach so that I have repetition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was why we gave Endurance the best green card of the year, right? Like, Endurance really changed the game as far as that goes. It's free. Yeah, I mean, it's free. And a lot of decks play a pretty, like the decks that are going to be playing, like considering it, are probably playing a reasonable amount of green cards to begin with. So, but anyway, back to, I can get in the weeds so fast. But when we look at these things, we look at, these green strategies, and really, what do they bring to the cEDH metagame, Inkmoth, like from your perspective?
What does green bring to the cEDH?
Yeah, like the mono-green strategies.
Well, we don't care about artifacts. So
we
really do not care about artifacts at all, which allows us to run a bunch of crazy stuff like Collector Roof, Null Rod, Root Maze, Manglehorn.
Yep.
And then Yeva specifically, if I have to get into that, I run stuff like Heartwood Storyteller, which really de-incentivizes storm turns, because the moment you start slapping down each and every one of those artifacts, you're drawing the table and absorb. Like, it's such a crazy amount of cards that you inevitably get stopped whether you like it or not.
Right.
And it ends up being like a 3-mana ad nos for me. Let me see.
Heartwood Storyteller is like one of the most controversial cards I've ever seen in the cEDH community.
Yeah, I
as far as our meta.
I'm trying to think of that card off the top of my head, what it does.
It's a fish, a symmetrical fish for the entire board.
Oh, I remember you posting about that now. Okay. I don't know how I feel about that card.
No. Yeah, that's I think that's a common. Either people are very opinionated about it and they're like, I don't know, or you play Yeva and you love it. Like, there's
I feel like this is the only list that can run it, because we break parity with it so well.
Right. How so explain this for the people at home then, who might be looking at this and going, how are you breaking parity on Heartwood Storyteller? How does Yeva really break the parity on that?
Well, one of my favorite things, which I have done even in leagues, is you cast a Heartwood Storyteller in response to, say, something like a Nas.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're getting all their fast mana and all their rituals, for each and every one of those, they have to allow the table to draw 3 cards each. At which point, if I feel like the stack is about to fizzle out, I stir the pot and throw stuff like Force of Vigor and Autumn's Veil that purposely draws the table even more cards to look for interactions to deal with the Adnos player. Because that's the one we want to stop. He put himself in that position where the whole table has to stop the Adnos player.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no choice but to either protect the Heartwood, which I've seen it. It's hilarious. People protecting Heartwood Storyteller is one of the funniest things you'll ever see, because like it's not really helping them, but at the same time it sort of is.
They get more cards in their hand. They're excited.
Yeah.
Correct. They get more cards. Usually what happens is that multiple people get stopped, and then my turn rolls around, and I Natural Order or Eldritch Evolution the Heartwood, which sacrifices it on cast.
As part of the casting cost, so
So you guys don't see a trigger off of it, and on top of that, the list is only like about 20% non-creatures. It's 40% creatures, and the other 28 is lands. So it's like we barely trigger it, and when we do, we kind of want to do it to psychologically trick the table into getting what they need, or letting us cast a spell that they seemingly has no impact.
Right.
And,
so
yeah,
it's interesting because like it was like something you were saying, Flower, is like it's a very hotly contested card in cEDH. Like when it's hotly contested, like kind of like what is your perspectives on that card then?
I came to the decision of running this card, believe it or not, after I played a game where I was blown out, and I had the board, and Urza needed to win, and he cast a Time Twister, and he was gonna win, but he gave me a brand new hand, and the way I saw it was he spent 3 mana to give the table 21 cards, and I won on the stack because of it.
That's so interesting.
And if we have the space in this format, subformat, if you will, for a 3 mana card that has a chance at blowing you up for the sake of drawing 7 cards, I am more than okay, because once I get an untap with Heartwood Storyteller, forget it. And that's not to say if I look like I don't have any mana and I have an Elvish Spirit Guide waiting around with a crop rotation, which is like my dockside. No one ever sees that coming, but the minute it happens, I just went on top of you. And Heartwood creates an environment where the likelihood of me drawing 20 to 30% of my deck is very realistic. And almost every single card in there will either get past non-creature hate or make itself uncounterable with stuff like Veils, Allosaurus Shepherd, Veil of Summer, Destiny Spinner. And remember that Destiny Spinner and Allosaurus Shepherd could be played at instant speed, which makes them way more devastating when you wait for the stack to get to that little peak moment.
And like at the end of the day, how many cards are you going to be feeding them? Maybe 2?
Yeah, I know I never feed it unless I'm deliberately trying to give the table answers. It's also a May ability, so that's pretty cool. In case there's an Ocean Thief,
right?
So
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's something that I really liked about it.
So Flower, I notice it's not in your Azusa list. So kind of what's your perspective on it then? Because it's interesting because, you hear these different perspectives, and you were talking about, how people either love it or hate it. Kind of what's your perspective on it?
I run 10 instants. So if I'm drawing the entire table on someone else's turn, I run 10 instants. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, 5 of them are tutors, and the rest of them, so 5 are tutors and 5 are interaction. So like removal, or I run a heroic intervention. So like those are my options. I do not have, there's nothing that would benefit me more than it benefits the rest of the table if I was running Heartwood Storyteller at all.
Yeah,
that'd be horrible.
Yeah, that's not a very good card in almost any other list.
No.
From what I've seen.
Yeah, no, it'd be pretty silly. I don't run enough. That being said, I do run a Yeva in my 99. And she is my number 1 tutor target.
And that makes me one of your favorite fans, by the way, Flower. Fun fact, Callahan, since we're talking about old metas and stuff. I placed Heartwood at the time also when ISO Rev was the most common win condition, and that was also a surefire way of stopping that, because you cast it in response to ISO Rev, and then each cast of Isokran Scepter feeds the dockside, so they couldn't go infinite without giving us our library.
Man, I miss Dramatic Scepter days. Those were the days, man. Those are the good old Magic days when you had. Do you remember Paradox Scepter, Inkmoth?
Yeah,
that was
I ran
the best deck.
Paradox Engine wasn't yet, but at some point or another.
Man, Flower, you never got to experience Paradox Engine. Oh man, it was okay. Hot take time, and maybe this isn't a hot take. Paradox Engine was like the most healthy card for cEDH, believe it or not.
It was,
but it was horrible for casual play.
100%.
One of the cards that the RC banned for, casual play, basically, because people would take really long turns with it, right?
Yeah. They just dirtle for like 20, 30 minutes just because they keep untapping their rocks, so they keep playing shit, and then they keep drawing. But those decks weren't designed to win off of that, so they're just like playing more and more stuff for the next turn.
Sheldon has said on this very podcast, Paradox Engine died for the sins of bad players. And that it killed off like the Captain Sase deck, and then that deck, like that whole community had to really like completely rethink how that deck can even function, and it took forever for it to come back, and it killed off Arkham deck. Yeah, it's still not great.
Did it come back with Elk?
It came back once people. I'm trying to think of what the card was that brought it. Like people have been trying to bring it back for years, but I forget exactly what it was that made it kind of playable again.
Because Sase Gigantha, Sase Elk is pretty good.
Oh no, I'm talking about Captain Sase, the green-white one, not
the green-white one?
Yeah.
That one. Then, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead and
back then, Flower, that list was like, it was the bomb. So since Paradox Engine was a legendary, you would tap for Mox Amber, which was also a legendary. You'd cast it, it'd untap everything, and then you'd look for Paradox Engine, and then you'd cast it, you'd play the free Mox Amber, which untaps everything, and then you just keep going.
Oh, that's actually really cool.
And then the deck is like all like hate pieces. And it was such a good counter to what was going on in the meta. And it did a really good job of like balancing out the Flash stuff that was going on at the time. And then like Flash's worst matchup, I would say, like Flash Hulk decks, was absolutely anytime you saw a Captain Sase deck across from you, because those decks could just deal with whatever you were doing. And when that got banned, it killed that, and it also killed Arkham Dagson. And both of those were stacks decks that were very healthy for the metagame.
Arkham Dagson?
Yeah, he was replaced by Urza.
Okay.
Yep. Arkham Dagson it's actually on the database again. They figured out.
It's not bad, but it's
not bad. It's just the lines are super convoluted.
And dice to oof.
Yes. Basically what it does, Flower, is you tap Arkham, target artifact creature's controller sacrifices it. That player may search their library for a non-creature artifact card and put it onto the battlefield, then you shuffle. And so you would just like sack a Ornithopter to get a Paradox Engine, and then cast a like Memnite, and then mix repeat, and then you would just win somehow. And you just can't do that anymore, which is really sad.
I'd like to pay 5 into a Court of Calling for 2.
Yeah, basically. Boop. Well, this was before Collector Oof existed.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oof is my baby.
Paradox Engine got banned like right before Modern Horizons 1 came out, I think. If I remember correctly.
That affected Yeva at the time, but then Shia came out, and now I don't really care if Paradox ever comes back because it non-blows with Paradox.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like it to come back, but for Sase, not for any mono-green list, because I feel like we're trying too hard for Shia and there's no point.
I think if it came back, it would make Storm decks in general just cleaner because, I mean, yeah, obviously, like it just... Also, you used to be able to do really fun wins with Isochron Scepter where if you had like positive mana rocks with an Isochron Scepter, you could just imprint Lightning Bolt underneath of Isochron Scepter and then just bolt the table to death. Yeah, because
Paradox Engine?
Yeah, because Paradox Engine, you are casting the copy off of Isochron Scepter, so that would untap everything. And so as long as you had like a Soul Ring and a Mana Crypt, you just killed the table.
Oh, that's actually really fun.
Like that was one of the things that was so fun with it was you used to be able to do that. Now you have to have like copy artifact. So you have to like dueling scepters. And it's I miss Paradox Engine so much. It was so great.
I actually run a card in my deck that just bringing up the infinite cast of Lightning Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm if not one of the only decks that runs a Glacial Chasm, like actively.
Interesting.
Tutors, yeah.
I've considered it in Lavinia, but so what was it that you really liked about it?
I do a lot of land loops, a lot of land locks. I run Crucible, I run Ramanap, and I run Ancient Green Warden. So for me, being able to sack the Glacial Chasm on my upkeep to its cumulative upkeep trigger, and then replay it from turn after I attack.
Okay.
Pretty solid. The biggest thing for me is that when you start out, generally you have like one or two people that you're playing against every single time,
Right.
Kind of the person who guides you in CEDH. Well, for me, that was Carnage, and he was playing Jessica Ishai.
I love Carnage.
Oh, man.
Cool.
Carnage is by far one of my best friends.
Wasn't Carnage one of the first people to do Jessica Ishai? Like it was like Carnage and Famji, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Carnage is the Falcon Punch deck.
That's right.
And I had to build this deck going against Carnage every single time I played. So we actually got to a point in my building of Azusa where we sat down across from each other and Carnage looked at me and said, I can't win. Like I can't win because I had a Glacial Chasm on field that he had no answer to, no way to get rid of on his turn. And I was constantly replaying it. Right. I had ways to protect my land reanimators. And then I run a Shuffle Titan. So he couldn't brain freeze me.
Lol.
So there got to a point where like people have definitely figured it out with brain freeze, but like brain freezing me, unless you have ways to interact at instant speed on top of the trigger, there's no way.
Just run Rest in Peace, guys. Come on.
No, anybody on brain freeze would be on Breach. Why would they want Rest in Peace?
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if for the people who listen to this podcast, they will be very aware of the fact that I think Jeskai is like not a great Storm color pairing. I think it's like the ideal control colors, and I get very frustrated by the lack of like. People are like, oh, I'm in red, I have to play Breach. And I'm like, you don't have to play Breach. You can...
Value Breach.
Lots of other stuff that you could be doing. So, man, I love talking to you guys. So, with all of that in mind, we've talked about, what does it bring to the table? What do you like about it? All those things. Why should people give it a try? Like if you're sitting there and you're somebody like me and you're like, oh, Marwyn looks interesting, or, like you look at, I'm going to make sure to link to both your deck lists in the description of this. And you look at this and you go, that looks like an interesting deck. Like what is the like elevator sales pitch for your, like for these types of decks? And I guess Flower, like what is your thoughts?
It's something different. Like that's my biggest pitch is that like if you've been playing these Turbo Nods or you've been playing these yeah. It's completely different.
Mine is different too.
But yours is different. Wow.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's and even within the green spectrum, you have Yeva and you have Azusa and you have Marwyn and you have Yisan and Selvala. So let's say these are your every one of them does a different thing.
Yep.
They all do different things. Like
I kind of put Marwyn and Selvala almost in the same boat, though they do what they do the same thing with a different approach. But yeah, I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. They like Azusa and Yisan and Yeva, and then obviously Marwyn and Selvala, they're so vastly different from each other.
Well, I mean, I think about like Yisan. Like Yisan is very much like a toolbox deck, right? Like it's very much I sit down, I examine what's going on, and then I make decisions based on the texture of the table. Whereas like Selvala and Marwyn feel very much like storm decks.
Yeah, that's I mean, I found Marwyn and Selvala to be way more proactive. Yeah. My only issue with them is that they're very easy to telegraph. And you could wait to the very last possible moment to interact with them with that wonderful Swords of Plowshare you're holding on to, and wait for that untap to be right on the stack, right when you know that they need that mana the most, and they're blown out for 2 turn cycles.
Right.
It's not going to be 1. It's going to be for a whole 2 cycles, because the next turn, they're either recasting their commander or trying to get another dork down and then passing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting just like how like different like all of them can be. And now we've got that like Mono-Green like what was that new commander that they just previewed? The one that like
bounces himself and
no, it does something with equipment. It's from the commander set, and I don't remember what it does, but like there's so many different ways you can go about it, and it's cool to see people brewing in that space and doing things that are new and different, and like you said, like doing things that aren't just blue farm and whatever is supposed to be the best deck at any given time, but. Yeah.
Inkmoth, I have a question for you.
Sure, shoot.
You had do you run Tooth and Nail?
No, I do not. Okay,
let's say you were running Tooth and Nail. Full board state, you have nothing. What do you Tooth and Nail for? What are the 2 things you put on the field?
Seedborn Duskwatch.
Yeah, that'll do it for me. It would be Apex Altasaur and Bane of Progress to wipe everyone else, because if I don't have anything, I don't let anyone else have anything out of either.
Yeah, that my best bet at winning in that with no board state, and I cast a fully entwined Tooth and Nail, that would be Seedborn and Duskwatch, which can almost assuredly guarantee a win before the 3rd player ends their turn, or leave me in a position where like I am borderline unstoppable. Or you have to try really hard to figure out what is the creature that I actually want to keep alive, which is probably not going to come down until the end step right before my turn.
I feel I definitely I don't play enough mono green to comment, because my snake brain is just like, oh, you get like Curian Rangel and like Regal Force or something like that, and that probably does nothing, but I don't know.
You need the Ashaya to make the Curian Ranger work.
Yeah.
And
I just work here.
I just work here. Yeah, for me it's like once I'm able to get a Yeva's honestly one of my first tutor targets. So I'm just playing a different Yeva deck.
Secret Commander Yeva.
Secret Commander Yeva. My actual commander just lets me like play some lands. That's it.
I mean, when it comes to describing what it feels like to play Yeva, I kind of feel like that picture of Charlie Day from Sunny in Philadelphia pointing at the sign. At the sign. He's just kind of like, he looks crazy, and But like here, like what I presented here on the board is just a nice little example of how many lines I can create with a Shia. So like you have the standard Priest of Titania, the big dorks, because they obviously untap for a ton of mana, Circle of the Druid, right? And then we get into the unique ones, which is where people don't see the wins. Beast Whisper and Kyrian Ranger and Ashaya do not go infinite mana, but they do go infinite draw.
Yep.
And if I get infinite draw, I can draw into my Lotus Cobra, which then triggers a landfall, and now I go mana positive. Then all I need to look for is a way to bounce the drawer so I don't deck out, which is very easy once you draw into the Scrib Ranger.
Right.
And that it's stuff like that people don't see. So then like Beast Whisper does the same thing. Glade Muse does the same thing. As I just described, Lotus Cobra goes infinite on its own. Shaman of Forgotten Ways, though seemingly a very bad dork, that only adds 2 creature mana since it's a forest thanks to...
It's formidable.
I have played against that card enough to be like, that is a red flag card every time I see it.
And what's really funny is what Ashaya enabled with it. A lot of people don't know that Ashaya and Kyrian Ranger do go infinite mana with it. Because you get infinite creature mana, right? And because it's a forest, you can then use that creature mana to filter it and make regular green mana since it's a forest thanks to Ashaya. So that makes it another viable infinite dork with an out attached to it. Because being able to pay 11 mana and fighting all your creatures just kills you. You got Joraga Tree Speaker that taps for 2. Earthcraft, because Earthcraft allows you to tap the Kyrian Ranger, it pays for itself, so you're getting a free untap, so you just need any creature on the field. Argothian Elder just needs a Shia to resolve without summoning sickness, and then it untaps itself and any other land. Concordant Crossroads has the same exact effect that Earthcraft has with it. And that's what I'm aiming for, to slap any one random creature on, to then do my version of Thassa's Oracle, which is Kyrian Ranger.
Can I introduce you to the cult that is Ashaya, Kyrian Ranger, Earthcraft, Scoot Swarm?
I love it. I just wish a Swarm wasn't so narrow in the list overall.
It's just good in Azusa regardless. Regardless of what I'm doing, it's just good in Azusa. Like, because it feeds my Gaia's Cradle, it feeds my Earthcraft, and it feeds all of my
and you have the land effects. Drops to trigger it. So I see it.
What are y'all doing? Trying to break Arena again?
That is my goal. My goal is to have so many tokens on the field that it gets to a point where I play on Trice, and it gets to a point where I have 1 token on the field and I annotate it to say big.
Oh my gosh.
Or many.
There is a lot of these on here.
Enough that if you were to Rakdos Charm me, I would be very sad.
That's hilarious. That is, I when that card came out, there were just so many videos circulating on Twitter of just people playing Arena and crashing Arena because they had accidentally gone infinite with Scoot Swarm, and it just would trigger Scoot Swarm, and then Arena just crashed, and you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I won.
Yeah, that was such a funny card.
Scoot Swarm actually replaced Field of the Dead in my deck.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it replaced Field of the Dead because it's harder to get rid of, and with Ashaya, your creatures count towards that land of different names. That what you need to trigger the Field of the Dead. So it normally works out, but I can trigger it way easier on its own with just a Scoot and some forests. I'm gonna get to 6 lands by turn 3. So
it's probably reasonably.
Huh?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. How do you feel about this is a very dumb take, so please laugh.
I love dumb takes.
Horn or Greed? I feel like you get the best value out of that.
Not a dumb take at all. I ran it and then I cut it and then I ran it and then I cut it and then I ran it and then I cut it. So at this point, it's like, I don't want to be drawing someone, a card a turn, an extra card a turn. However, I'm going to be drawing 3 a turn. So I do outvalue them. But I'm just so scared.
Yeah, you got to contest with card quality as well.
Yeah, and it might draw me 3 more lands because I'm running, 37 of them, and it might draw someone their Underworld Breach. So,
yeah, that's pretty fair.
I'm not on it right now, but I
just I was like, if there was ever a commander that broke parity with that, or got the most out of that card, it would have been.
It's Azusa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure getting to talk with you guys. Like I said, I love both of you and I always enjoy talking with you. As far as where people can find you on social media, like Inkmoth, if people want to interact with you, want to talk to you, see what you're doing, where can people find you?
You have a Discord. That is the one place where I'm incredibly active, helping new pilots learn how to play the list, because it is a very difficult list. It really is. I'm on Twitter, but I keep my notifications off, as I told you earlier.
Yeah.
For my own sanity. So that's why I seem very unresponsive at times, and it's just because it doesn't occur to me to go on Twitter until it pops into my brain. But yeah, the Discord I keep unmuted, and I'm always taggable there, and anytime anybody wants to pop in there and talk about cEDH or learn how to play the list, or anything that can
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of petered out there.
Flower, you not only are, I know people can find you on the r/cEDH Discord, where you run the the Trice Leagues that you guys are doing?
Weekly Saturday Trice Leagues.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about that, because I know that's something you are deeply passionate about.
Yeah. So the weekly Saturday Trice Leagues are weekly Trice Leagues on Saturday. It starts at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it generally runs. We're fixing it. It is running a few hours now, like 4 to 5 hours is what you could expect for the entire league. 3 rounds and then a winner's pod, and you get cool, bragging rights when you win with a cool icon next to your name, cool roll. That happens every week, and it's super fun. You also get automatically entered into the ranked system in cEDH or in the Reddit server. That will rank you for points for all your wins and all the times you go to the finals pod. And you will be invited to their ranked league every 3 months, quarterly.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then as far as where people can find you, what you're working on, where can people follow you?
You can follow me. I'm in the Reddit Discord. Go in there and ping for Flower and you'll find me. 2 W's. Second W is silent. And then you can also find me on Twitter. And that is at FlowerFae, FAE, and the second W as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure. I know I want to have you guys back on at some time to talk about other stuff, because you guys are just great guests.
Wow.
Thank you.
So
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was totally surprised by this.
What'd you say?
I was totally surprised and taken aback by it. But so thank you so much, Callan. That really means a lot.
Oh no, absolutely. Not to go too deep into it, but for me, everything about this podcast is about the community and highlighting things that are going in the community and trying to enrich the community. And so anytime that I find people that, like you guys, who are positive people in the community, I really am okay, these are people that we need to be talking with, because that's why I have Ian on every other week, right? Because it's just here is a good person in the community. We want to talk more about those sorts of things. But with that being said, that about wraps things up for us here today. Just a quick reminder that you can follow all of us here on Twitter at Sculpty Boys. Here's how you spell that. If you can't spell that, or if you don't want to try and spell that, we have a link directly to it in our link tree in the description below. Want to also give an extra thanks to some of our high tier patrons. Justin, Michael Levine, Dr. Michael Levine, CZ, David Snavely, Dionyches, Jason Bialik, Lone Wolf, Matt Banier, and Senior Coupon. If you too would like to become a patron, you can head on over to patreon.com/The Mind Sculptors, or again, check out the link in our description. Thank you again for joining us, and from all of us here at The Mind Sculptors, I'm Callahan, and we'll see you next time.
I'm in line with the stars, I'm in sync with the earth. 10 toes deep, flower child from the turf. I never switch sides, like even when I die, I'ma ride for the squad, ladder ties in the hearse. I've been on the vibe, kinda hard to describe. I'm in between, I'm good and it's fine, but I'm tired of the grind. Then I come alive in the night to realize I'm in the middle of the time of my life. I never so packed for the stack, never lied on the rap. Got a bag from the way that I write it. Queen looking Tyson, do that ass survive, doing 80 to the house. Then I hit it to the sky, change haters on a tirade. Talking to their grip in the face, be still, let that hate stuff fade. We all want the same, we all want a meal in the safe. I wanna live like I'm trying to reach enlightenment. Trail spill from my lips, feel big from the bib. Take a sip till I pass out. I'm trying to get grit, but it don't make sense, cause you can lose life on this fast route. Yeah, turn thoughts to a cash cow. I might flip that to the glass house. I don't need the accolades, I'm in love with the chase. I just wanna eat, save a spot at the table. Beast with the slap, pin myself on the map. You long with the wind, but we knowing that it's cap. 5-hour flights, couple nights at the